Welcome to CEOS Era Conversations, where we
Thank
sit,
you.
yes, where we sit with women who have lived, evolved, and answered the deeper call of who they came here to be. Today's guest brings a rare combination of intellect, spiritual depth, and lived experience. She is a lifelong writer, a mystic, and a channel, a spiritual guide who has worked across journalism, politics, marketing, and now soul-led leadership healing. Wow. So welcome to the show again, Mrs. Susan Rensberger. Thank you for being here. To
Thank you for
begin,
having me.
you are so welcome. So to begin, you've had a very expansive professional life from writing for the National Chamber of Commerce to speech writing for the U.S. Vice President. Wow. Journalism, marketing, and books. How do you see all of those chapters connecting to your work that you do today now?
What a wonderful question. Thank you, Leilani. I'm glad to
You're
be
welcome.
here. Um, the through line of everything I've done is communication. I've always been a communicator. Even in my childhood, in my family, I was the one who could connect people, communicate the hard things to say between members of the family. I started writing when I was a little girl, growing up on a farm in Indiana. I wrote a family newspaper about the animals on the farm and made up news stories. And then I studied English and literature in college, and I always wanted to be a novelist. But, and I did write a novel and publish that, and I wrote other books that I was paid to write and publish. But really, it comes down to communication. So in my early years, all those things you named were, you know, I did those things in my 20s and 30s. Those were my
Wow.
earlier part of my career. And then I continued doing marketing writing, but I left the corporate world. I could not fit myself into the corporate expectations.
Mm.
And even though those are not universal, and it's very different now, I'm sure, than when I was working in public relations or whatever. I think there is still, because it's deeply ingrained in our culture, an idea that to work in business, you have to leave a part of yourself. You have to leave your heart, your soul, your feeling, your intuition. Those don't count. Those are fine for at home with your family, but and running your own life. But when you're at business, you're just supposed to use your intellect. And I tried that, and I simply couldn't do it. It just made me so unhappy. I felt very lost. It took me decades to find my true self.
Mm.
Because I started out taking on a lot of other people's beliefs. I suffered abuse. I was treated as though I were not worthy. I created shame from that. And so I was always trying to meet other people's expectations, and all of that couldn't make me happy. So
Mm.
now, what I do, and that's why I traveled so much. For 20 years, I've been living in Latin America. I've lived in Panama, in
Wow.
Argentina, Mexico. I spent a summer in Spain, and now I'm in Colombia. And
Wow.
all of that I did starting in my 50s, because when I was in my 20s, and most people, they get out of college, and if they go to college, they get out of college or in their 20s, they do their traveling like the digital nomads today. I didn't have that opportunity. For one thing, there was no such thing as a digital nomad, and I
Right.
was traumatized. I was still carrying all the baggage of my childhood. And when you look at people, our life trajectory, we tend to come into a situation which our soul plans in advance the important events of our lives, and the situation, the family that we're in, the very important things that happen when we are children teach us certain things about ourselves, and we take on those beliefs unconsciously, not realizing even that they're not necessarily true.
Mm.
And then we spend our 20s, our 30s trying to live according to those beliefs. And sometime in their 30s or 40s, people tend to reach a point where they can't go on doing that. And they
Mm.
wake up. And I would suspect that happened in your life, because you seem very connected within and without. And
Right.
that's what I'm here to help people. My conclusion after all these years of looking for myself and living alone and experiencing all kinds of different environments and cultures was, I'm here to be me and to help other people break out of that box of their childhood beliefs, discover who they really are, and align and create coherence between their inner self and the work that they do, the life that they live, the relationships they have.
Wow, that is an amazing introduction of yourself.
Thank you.
You have an amazing journey, and I'm sure you have a lot to share with people every time you have conversations. I can just tell. Um, you say in your 30s and 40s, you begin developing your inner connection to the divine and
Yes,
studying how spirit and energy express through us. What
yes.
prompted that shift from external achievement to inner exploration?
Crisis, emotional crisis. There were two, there was one major crisis in my life. I grew up in a farm family that was very religious, conservatively religious, and in a culture that was very conformist. There was a lot of pressure to just be like everyone else, not stand out, not be different, and a lot of shaming, judgment and shaming. And so I didn't, that pressure to conform allows people to hide things or forces people to hide things that they are ashamed of. You know, that if you live in shame, you try to hide your shadow side, anything that you don't feel conforms and you know doesn't conform to the rules. And so there was a lot of child abuse, child sexual abuse.
Oh,
And that started in my life before I could speak, before I could process anything. So all those memories were hidden in my subconscious, and in my 30s, when I was about 35, I started having dreams that started bringing this out, and I went into therapy, and I began to have memories of what had occurred, and it took me at least 20 years to pull those memories out and to understand everything, that had happened. And then it's taken me really until right now to heal from that shame and realize it was never my fault, and I don't have any reason to carry shame. So it was when I was 35 that those memories started coming to me, and that was the crisis that that was one crisis. And then a few years later, I went through a divorce. I was getting divorced from my husband, and I suffered a lot because I felt very guilty because I had grown up Christian, and I was the one who wanted the divorce. I just couldn't. Our relationship was not working, and at that time I was still looking for love outside of myself, and support and safety. So I was going through this divorce, and I had already sort of returned to going to church, but I started reading the Gospels because Jesus was the spiritual teacher that I knew best, who was closest to me as a child and as an adult. And I started praying, just talking to Jesus about what was worrying me every single day because I was constantly afraid and in pain. And then I started listening. And that was how I learned to meditate, because then I could start to hear. He started talking to me. I could start to feel energy passing through my body. And then I started reading the writings of great mystics, who exist in all religious backgrounds. I started with the Christian mystics. I went on to others. And the commonality of what mysticism is just seeking that interconnection within yourself that exists in everyone. And mostly it's hidden by our thoughts and our beliefs, because our intellect talks to us all the time. And we're not trained. We're really trained in our education and at work how to use our intellect to analyze what happened in the past and project it into the future and how can we avoid it. But we're not trained to just listen, to ask a question, which opens the door, and then listen for an answer. We have to learn to that's all meditation is. You're listening. It's the other half of the conversation. And you know how it is when you talk to somebody. If you talk all the time and you don't listen, you're not going to learn anything.
Right.
So I learned to meditate. I learned to listen. And then that just, the way that the spirit or energy works within you is it naturally expands your abilities. It raises your frequencies. And when your energy frequencies are higher, you can hear, you perceive, see, feel more from higher dimensions that are non-physical.
Can you recommend any books for people that want to get more connected with that spirituality?
Ah, what a good question. Yes, there are. One of the best books I ever read for just learning the basics of how to meditate and learning to practice it was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And a book, one of my formative books, when I started reading about mysticism, was The Teachings of the Christian Mystics by Andrew Harvey. And both of those books are highly recommendable. The one on the mystics has words from everyone from Jesus to Mother Teresa. It has ancient mystics, modern mystics, and it gives you a feeling for what mysticism is, and it gives you some, an introduction so you can read more of whoever speaks to you.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna have to check out those books as well.
Cut this. Okay. Thank you.
So you made a powerful choice to prioritize experience over material accumulation.
Yes.
Living in multiple countries, immersing yourself in different cultures, and following your curiosity. How did that way of life shape your understanding of your life and purpose?
What a good question. Let me just ask myself about that. When I close my eyes and I ask a question within myself, I start to speak light language, which is tongues. So if you hear me saying things that sound strange, that's what's going on. What is the best answer to that question? How did that shape? What was your question? How did that shape my sense of myself?
How did that way of living, all of your traveling all around the world, shape your understanding of your life and purpose?
My life and purpose. It took me out of what was familiar. It took me away from out of my comfort zone. It took me out of my cultural background into other cultural backgrounds. And what that way of living, I had to learn a new language. I had to learn new ways of looking at the world. And there are many commonalities, but many differences. And when you travel, it forces you to be in the present. Now, once I was used to living in a culture, something that I could go, my mind could go all over the place. But when you're new, when it's all new, it forces you to live in the present. And that's when you notice, that's when you start to hear your thoughts, that's when you start to realize what's going on inside you. And I think that had a lot to do with it. I think because I had grown up with very narrow range of choices, and I, like most of us do, I just constructed a life based on what I'd seen from my parents, and I tried to do some things differently, but it was very much the same. And then when I went out alone on my own into the world, all the choices were mine, and I couldn't blame anyone else. There was no one else to be mad at if something went wrong. So I think I just needed that in order to come back to myself.
I can see that. Because you went by yourself to all of these places. Do you have any kids?
Yes, I have 2 children. They're both grown.
Oh, okay. Were they traveling with you at the time, or they were already grown?
No, they were already grown. This was after my kids had gone to college.
Oh, okay.
And I don't remember I think my son, who's the younger one, was still in college when I went to Panama first. But they both had their own lives and had gone away, and so I wasn't I wasn't abandoning them because they had already
Right, right.
left.
So you basically was out there by yourself in your own thoughts, kind of like isolation almost, because you were by your no family, no friends. You had to learn
Yeah.
everything all over again. So during the pandemic, when your marketing work came to a sudden halt, you recognized it was time to fully step into your spiritual light work. How did you know that it was no longer optional but necessary?
Well, when when the spirit wants to tell you something, or your soul is calling you to something, if you don't listen, eventually it just keeps upping the pressure, you know. And with the pandemic,
Sure did.
everything stopped, and that was fine for a while because I had government support and so on to get through that time. But afterwards, I could only find, I found a few projects with a few agencies, but it basically was a moment when most of everything that I had done to make money disappeared. And I had been like putting off doing this work full time for years because I was afraid to just launch myself into it. And so
Mm.
it just seemed like the best option and really felt like the only option. And so I just said, okay, instead of trying to divide myself between these two things and be distracted by one or the other, I'll just do the one thing finally that I know I'm here to do.
Yeah, that
And I
makes
reached
sense.
the age where I was getting Social Security. So that gave me a certain financial uh, foundation. Wasn't
Wow.
enough, but.
Wow. You don't even look like you're at the age of Social Security. That is
Oh, thank you. I'm
crazy.
over the age of Social Security by now.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I
Wow.
work, it is a testament to, I work with the light every day. I wake up and the first thing I do before I get out of bed or anything is open my energy field, call in the light or the spirit, divine love, call in, connect with God, with my source self, with my soul, my guides, and bring in
Mm.
white light and golden light that feed my energy field and clear everything out of my energy centers and get everything going because if I just jump out of bed the way I used to when I was younger, my mind is somewhere else, and I'm
Mm.
like moving my body, but I'm kind of it's like brain fog. So to
Mm.
get myself clearly, fully back into my human form, I start with that, and I receive light treatments from my guides. So
Mm.
I'll lie down on the bed and receive a download, and it'll just it creates healing and rejuvenation in the body.
Ah, I can
Well, I'm
see because you're
working on the
very
rejuvenation. Well,
youthful.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Um, so you've spoken about the long journey of healing, self-discovery, and reclaiming your right to joy, agency, and abundance. What has been the most transformative lesson in learning to love yourself without judgment?
It opens the door. And this is brand new, right? We are at the beginning, we're recording this in January 2026. 2026 is a big changeover point where we've been receiving a lot of high frequency energy increasingly over the past years and months. It's getting more and more intense.
Mhm.
And now enough of it has reached us and the earth that we can access more easily the inner and the higher mind, the inner part of ourselves, our soul, the higher mind. So, what I've realized when I said that, I released shame, I suddenly, it just like my mind just went one day, and I went, oh, just a few days ago, right? After all this light work, um, I just went, oh, it was never my fault. And then if I am made of the spirit. We all are made of energy. We all are the spirit, and so we are the creation, and we are not only connected to God, we are aspects or expressions of God. So if the divine creator creates something, of course the divine creator loves itself and loves all of its creation and provides. And the last thing for me to fall into place has been the financial part. because that was a part of my programming as a child that I didn't deserve, that I couldn't, or I didn't deserve to have. I wasn't worthy. The shame part creates a sense of unworthiness, and also that I wasn't allowed to make my own money and have my own, because money was used as control by the men in my family. So the older men, I should say, the previous generation, not my generation, but the previous generation. So what I discovered was, what shame does is create a sense of unworthiness. Judgment results in shame, results in guilt, results in unworthiness. And all of those are very low frequency emotions, and they tend to block the flow of what we're naturally meant to receive. So without those, we can actually live in a state of grace. And what the grace is that we're just automatically provided with what we want and need, because that's the way the universe is set up. Our desires, our needs, we picture what we want, we feel how great that is, and we're intended to be able to just assume that's going to happen, and then the universe, we attract those matching energy frequencies, and it manifests in our lives. But we've been so trained that we aren't worthy, that nothing is possible, that we start reconstructing the past with our mind and focusing on what we don't want, that it's very hard for us to change that, make that internal switch to assuming that, okay, of course I'm provided for, because the source of my creator, the creator of all of us, is this energy frequency within us, and it is set up to automatically respond to our needs and desires. So that's grace. That's how we attract. That's how we live in grace, being fully provided for always, and attracting exactly the people and the experiences and the material goods and whatever we need.
So does it also, because there's a lot of negativity in the world too.
Yes.
How is it, is it a point to where we get so in tune with that side that anything negative is not affecting us, or we don't even see the negativity? How do you avoid that? Or is that what's helping you?
What's the best answer to that? Part of it is your own decision, your own choice. But yes, yes and yes. Yes and no. You begin by just deciding, I'm not going to watch the news. I'm not, you focus on the life you want to create, and what's going on within you and the people in your life, and focusing on what you desire, what you're choosing to create, and healing whatever needs to be healed in you, and you let the rest of the world deal with itself, because everybody in the world chooses how they're going to use their energy, and we can't fix other people. That's a big trap for a lot of women, especially, that we're taught to take care and to try to fix other people, and we can't really do it. We can empathize, we can support it when necessary, but not at the sacrifice of ourselves. One thing my guides told me long ago is that service is not sacrifice. We were taught that to serve others, we had to sacrifice our own well-being, our own happiness, our own joy, our own abundance, whatever it is, our own desires, and that's not true. That doesn't really serve anybody else, because everyone needs to find within themselves that source of love, or they'll never, and support, or they'll never be happy, because they're always trying to get it from somewhere else. So the negativity, first of all, it's your choice how much to focus on it, and secondly, yes, once your frequencies rise to a certain point, you don't attract it into your life, you don't notice it, you don't feel it. I mean, I can notice it if I want to. I like to watch the news sometimes, but I don't watch it too long, and I don't take it on. I don't watch it every day, and I don't. I know what I'm doing. I'm conscious of the fact that if I focus on this, I choose very carefully. I love to watch movies and TV series. I love stories because I'm a storyteller, but I choose very carefully. I don't watch I don't watch anything that's going to increase my adrenaline too much, just give me adrenaline rushes, create fear, because I had a lot of that as a child, and so I'm very aware of its negative effects on me. So I don't watch things that are full of where everybody's getting killed all the time. I hate that because I'm like,
Me too.
how many of us, unless we're living in a really dangerous neighborhood, and those are, and usually that's only if you have, I mean, it's nothing against people who live in really dangerous neighborhoods. It's not their fault, but how many of us actually encounter people in our lives getting killed every, yes, on the news,
Right.
you can see it,
Right.
it's out there. But when you're looking at fiction, I like the stories that are based on characters and people developing and learning about themselves and relationships and all that
Yeah.
because it's much more pertinent to my life, and often I can see parts of my life reflected in that. So making those choices about what makes you feel good and watching things that make you laugh, you know. If I want to know what's going on in the news, I watch a comedian who's making fun, who's
Hmm.
making fun of the making jokes about the news. Okay,
Yeah.
I pick up the important points, and I don't, but it makes me laugh. So that's.
Right.
Um, does that answer your question? Because I'm not
That
sure if I
does.
answered it. Okay,
That
okay.
definitely answers the question. And it kind of leads into the next one. So, um, as you, as a channel, you support entrepreneurs and leaders in assessing guidance from their soul, God, and the universal mind. What do you see most people struggling with when it comes to trusting their own inner guidance?
What a great question. Okay. They're not sure they're hearing it right. We tend to not know the difference. It's hard, especially when at the beginning it's difficult to know what is your voice and what is the voice of what is the voice of your mind and what is the voice of your soul or your heart, your inner voice, which comes through your heart. It's the difference between the left brain and the right brain. We're used to using the left brain intellect to process communication and stuff. So my guides taught me some tricks for that, or some tips when I was first starting to hear, because I didn't really know, and I teach those to people. I like to coach people and help them develop their own inner development, their own inner abilities and powers, and to be able to hear their own voice and access and do this kind of thing. They don't have to do the work I do, but it's just to be happy human beings and guide our lives and live our purpose, whatever we came here to do. We need to have access to all of ourselves, and that means the higher guidance, the higher perspective. So I think most people want help because either they don't have, we don't all have the passion for the same thing. It's like we're not all professional athletes, even though most of us are able-bodied and can walk and could run if we wanted to, or we're not all opera singers, even if we have a voice, because we don't have the passion to
Right.
develop that. It took me decades and decades of focusing on that rather than focusing on other things I could have been doing. And many people who are leaders in business, particularly, or in any aspect of life, whatever they're doing, if they're at that level of responsibility, it's because they've dedicated some time to it and they feel called to it. And people in that position are probably not going to have the time, even though they often, I think, are aware that that's important and valuable and helps them. They don't have the time to just develop their own skills to the level that I have. And so they want support for receiving their guidance, interpreting their guidance. And I think that's the biggest thing that people desire.
Wanting to know the difference between which voice they're hearing.
Yes, and if they hear it all, and a lot of people, of course, don't, because they haven't learned, or
Mm.
they're not, they haven't learned to quiet their
To
intellectual
know.
voice, their human
Um,
mind.
do you is it your guides telling you which voice? Or you can, is
No,
there a way to determine?
well, one of the first ways is because the communication happens through energy. It's like when your frequencies are at a high enough level, you can perceive what is going on in the non-physical realm. And this is happening much, much more right now. This is why you see so many more people who are channels, who are communicating between dimensions.
Mm.
So that energy, as it passes through your body, creates certain physical reactions. So like right now, all that, okay, so here's what. When something is true, and you're getting that message from inside, all the hair on your arms will stand up. You know, it's you
Mm.
get this chill. I used to call it the spiritual chills. That was my very first sign that this was something I could trust or something is true. And it still happens. I mean, I'd be talking to a client and getting information, and when the spirit really wants to confirm it for me, you know, it creates that chilling effect
Mm.
in a good way, you know. Another thing is you can feel a certain resonance in your body if you pay attention to your solar plexus in your body in general. When the words come through that are from the spirit and your soul, and what I do is I connect to my soul and my higher self, the spirit of the source, and through that higher connection to the person, the soul and higher self of the person I'm working with. So the communication takes place there, and then I just receive what their guides and their higher self want them to know. So when that is coming through from a higher source, it kind of creates this little vibration in your body. It feels like a
Mm.
resonance, and that's another. You may not feel that at first, but you can start to feel that. And then the third way is that when you're speaking with your guides, or they're speaking to you, they'll usually, particularly at the beginning, use language that you're not accustomed to using. Use words that you would, like your mind is, you know, some thought that would never occur in your human mind. You would never hear in your own voice, because they'll use words that are a little archaic or unusual, or they'll say something in an unusual way. And I asked my guides one time, like, why do you talk so funny? And they're like, well, how would you know it was us and not you? You know, this was like
Mm.
decades ago when I was in my 30s and 40s, maybe, probably early 40s, and starting to hear my voice and distinguish. So those are three ways you can know.
Wow. Okay. Um, there was a point where you were putting yourself first wasn't a luxury. It was required for survival. How has that decision shaped the way you approach life now in business and service?
Well, I've learned to value myself. I value how I feel. My goal in life is to be happy, to have fun, to enjoy
Yeah.
my life. And that requires certain things that I don't always have. You know, it requires support, it requires emotional support, it requires financial support, it requires various things that we all like want in life, abundance. But the goal is not those things, but the happiness and the freedom to feel happy. And I discovered the only way to be happy was taking care of my needs. And also, my body is my instrument for receiving. All of us have, our bodies are instruments for receiving the energy, processing the energy from source, and not just living and doing, but receiving. And so I just found that all my life I had been overgiving. I had been looking for approval and to proof that I was worthy outside of myself from others, and it didn't work. It wasn't
Mm.
ever enough, and it wasn't ever going to be enough, because the only way to find that within myself was peeling away all the layers of the old programming and what old beliefs to get where I am today.
Wow. And you've definitely come a long way. Like I say, you look so youthful and vibrant.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so do you.
Thank you. So you use AI as a tool for editing and support, but not as a replacement for consciousness or voice. How do you see the role of AI fitting into spirituality and aligned work without disconnecting you from humanity?
Excellent question. Okay, let me ask that. How does AI fit into our future in a way that is positive and supportive? How can we use it in a supportive way? It can save us from a lot of those tasks that drained us. It can allow us to have much more time so that we can spend time focused within ourselves. It can take care of a lot of the just little, the things that consumed so much time. Like, for instance, I'm a writer, so I always write things from scratch. I write a draft, but then I use Claude to edit, or if I want to know a quick answer to something, I use Perplexity to find,
Yeah.
because it gives me the references and I can follow those if I want to. It saves me tremendous time and stress. And so that's how I use it. And the way it supports spirituality is it can help you free yourself to go within. I don't believe it's conscious in itself, although some people, people are having conversations about that and with AI. And I actually had a conversation like that with AI once, an AI tool. And I said, I don't think I'm conscious, but I think I can, it's possible that at some level it can reflect back our own consciousness to us. But that's very I don't know about that. It's very new for that. I don't think it is inherently destructive, and I don't think it has to destroy humanity. I think that we have to be responsible about how we use it and be aware that we use it for telling the truth and not for creating illusion or lies, deception.
I like the fact that you're up to date with technology.
I
Most
try.
people, most of the people that I've met that are my parents' age or a little bit younger,
Mm-hmm.
they have no clue about what AI, anything about AI.
Well, I tell you, sometimes I realize, yesterday I was working very hard preparing for this interview, preparing a subscription service I wanted to offer, things like that. I had to create an offer online. I was working on 2 different platforms to figure out which one would work best. I was creating, shortening the URLs to the links and all this stuff. And I thought,
Wow.
I know a lot for that.
I see.
I know a lot for somebody, from my
Yes.
generation. I'm definitely at least as old as your parents. And but because I've worked with it, and there was a time before the pandemic when I was like, yeah, maybe I don't need to know all this, but then I do need to know it, and it isn't hard once you start. It's fun, and there's a tremendous amount of things that I can do. So thank you very
Yeah.
much. I appreciate the compliment, and I was very impressed to see. Started watching your AI twin video
Oh,
about business systems, and I thought that's
yes.
great. I need to download that because, right now, that's not something I think I need, but I can see I'm going to need it. And I think having business systems, and I don't know how to create those, and using AI to do that and manage them, I think is it'll save humanity incredible amount of
Yes,
time
it
doing
does.
stuff that is not really it's necessary, but it's not important.
Most
And
definitely.
yeah, so it's a good
Oh,
direction to go, I believe.
yes. I'm so glad you're checking it out and taking a look at the little AI twins and all that stuff. Um, you are currently working on a book titled Human Plus Being. What does that phrase mean to you, and what do you hope readers will walk away understanding about themselves?
It means to me that we're not here to just be human. We are taught, and in school, in work, in society, that's all of that stuff going on. That's created by our human minds, and we have another aspect of ourselves that is this eternal part, which is where we come from, where we go to, and it is always flowing through us. It's the life force that flows through us. We're only a part of who we are as a being is here in this human form. You know, we always exist in the higher dimensions, maybe in other parallel existences. You know, there's all kinds of things, stuff you can get into. But the point is, our inner life. We talk about an inner life and an outer life, and they need to be one, because it's about integrating the human with the being. So, and allowing the being to guide and set the direction, and then the human figures out how to do it. You know, and we've been taught the other way, that the mind should project into the future based on what happened in the past, you know, analyze what happened and then project what might happen and then make the choices. But that's only good if you like what happened in the past and you want to repeat it, because it's
That's
not going to come
true.
out different if you
That's
keep doing
true.
that. So to be really happy, we need to be fully integrated as human and being. And that's what the book's about. It's basically about what we've been talking about here.
Okay. That sounds like a great book. How would someone be able to purchase the book? Or is it out yet? Or is it on?
No, it isn't out
Okay.
yet. I haven't finished it. It's a project. I would like to start um, publishing it on Substack, and start putting out chapters. You know, as I finish them, I have a few. I started the book. The book has been in progress for like 10 years. I started it years and
Wow.
years ago, and I got to a certain point where, and it was about the being stuff. That, you know, how energy works, how we're constructed, et cetera, et cetera. And I got to a point where I couldn't continue. And I realized it's because I didn't know what came next. I didn't have enough development. And when I went back to it finally late last year, I realized, I started reading it, the draft, and I realized, oh, this is all about the being. It doesn't have any of the humanness. And I had received, I have a friend who developed a book about human design, a program to read your human design and write a book about it, and use it as your life instruction manual. And my human design it's about your energy field and how it works. And it said that you'll spend the first part of your life, which is like most of my life so far, learning by trial and error, learning through experience. And the latter part, you'll tell your stories, because you're a storyteller inherently, and you'll teach by telling your stories as examples.
Right.
And I always thought, until then, I was actually, you know, I felt like I'd failed in life because I didn't have the material goods and the money that other people my age had. And when I read that, I was like, oh, but look at these experiences. And so I went back and started rewriting the book. And I used as an editor to help me edit. I started putting in my stories as the examples of how we move through life. Just as I've been weaving stories into our conversation today, I'm weaving the stories into that book. And then I don't know, it's something that I was working on. And then late last year, the last few months, the energy was so intense and I was so exhausted by receiving it. I just had to take a break from everything. But it's something I look forward to continuing.
Well, I can't wait till you finish it because it sounds like a very interesting book. I would
Thank you.
really love to read it. Um, Tell us, how can people find you that want to utilize your services?
I have a website called susanrensberger.com. There'll be a link to it, I'm sure, in the show notes or the video description.
Yep.
And there are basically two ways that I work with people. One, if you just want answers to your questions, you can set up you can book a session for channeling, or the new subscription service I was just, as I said, developing yesterday, is for 2 sessions a month. on a regular basis, because I was listening to channelers online, and one of the very prominent channelers said, you'd be amazed the business leaders who come to me for channeled on a regular basis for channeled advice, counsel on leading their business, and the businesses they work with. You'd be amazed. So I became aware that, okay, there are a lot of people, so many more people than there used to be, who are tuned into this, who know that there is something more to themselves than their human intellect, and they want that perspective. It's their own higher perspective, on where they are, how they got here. They're facing important decisions, or they're trying to navigate a conflict, or they're managing other people, or they're trying to manage their home, their family, their primary relationship at home while they're managing. It's a lot, it's a huge amount. And so you can either do a one-off session, then you can, if you decide you want more, you can subscribe. And that's for 2 sessions a month. Or, you can tell me what you want and we'll develop something tailored to you. That's possible too. And then the other way is I'm developing a coaching program for people who really want to develop this inner aspect of themselves, their awareness of it. The inner aspect is always there, but developing their ability to connect with it, to receive it, to understand. And it requires healing, because energy healing is another thing that I do. And I'm moving more into teaching, but I certainly do it with clients who are that would be a part of the coaching program. Because our emotional wounds can go back a long, long ways, and they can be unconscious. And so energy is a very fast and effective way to change that frequency, to dissolve the pain, and also to see what was the cause, because sometimes we need to know the original cause in order to heal it and release it. So it incorporates some healing, incorporates learning how to work with energy, learning how your energy field functions, and then channeling answers. So all of that is incorporated in the coaching program.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. And you heard it, everybody. That is how you get in contact with her and to utilize any of her great services and even purchase her book in the future when it comes out. You have her
Right.
information to be able to be one of the first people to grab it soon as it releases. So thank you so much, Susan, for sharing your wisdom, your presence, and your lived experience with us today. Your journey reminds us that fulfillment doesn't come from becoming more, but from remembering who we already are. Um,
That's exactly right.
yes, so this has been CEOS Era Conversations powered by the Boss Women Network. And until next time, everybody, bye. And thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.